If you raced BMX in Southern California in the 80s, you already know. This wasn't some weekend hobby. This was dirt tracks. Starting gates and figuring out real quick, like by the first turn, whether your bike was fast enough or if you were. See, BMX wasn't born by accident. It was forged on dusty SoCal soil, starting in the early 70s as kids imitating motocross racers on dirt courses around Orange County and Los Angeles. Riders cut down big bikes, slapped on knobby tires, and challenged each other on makeshift tracks. And by the 80s, those local vibes had exploded into organized racing circuits with real stakes. We grew up in La Jolla, raced all through the early and mid-80s, and honestly, this era shaped how a lot of us still think about BMX. This wasn't freestyle, this was racing. BMX racing in Southern California just felt different. The tracks were fast, the berms were big, and most races were basically won or lost in the first 10 seconds. You didn't just roll up to the gate and chill. You were looking around. Who had the lighter frame? Who swapped parts? Who looked confident? Maybe too confident. You kind of knew before the gate dropped who was getting pinched in turn one and who was coming out clean. It was elbows, dust, and full commitment. And much of that wasn't just feeling, it was real. Bikes were evolving fast, influenced by materials like 4130 chromoly tubing, heat-treated steel that was stronger and lighter over old cruiser frames, giving riders a legit edge on acceleration and handling. These aren't the only BMX bikes from the 80s, but they're the ones that actually mattered on the track. Hutch bikes, yeah, everybody noticed those. More than just bikes, they were about presence. Chromed-out frames, aggressive geometry, and a reputation for being race-ready right out of the box made Hutch's S-Pro Racer and Hollywood series show up like someone was saying, "I came to win." Stiff frames, chrome everywhere. If a kid rolled up on a Hutch, you just assumed he was fast, or at least believed he was. And that belief mattered, because Hutch was one of the brands that backed real racers and cultivated a racing identity in the BMX world. On hard-packed tracks, that stiffness worked. On rough tracks, that bike told on you real quick if you weren't as smooth. GT was everywhere in Southern California. And that wasn't by accident. These were the frames built by Gary Turner in his Fullerton garage, back when riders needed something tough, predictable, and fast. 4130 chromoly tubes, matched with thoughtful engineering, gave GT bikes a smooth, stable ride that helped racers carry speed through sections others would scrub off. They were predictable. They were stable. They just worked. GTs tracked clean through rhythm sections and held speed coming out of turns. Nothing flashy, just solid. And honestly, that wins races. Redline usually wasn't the bike you had. It was the bike you wanted. Redline was all about racing pedigree, Kokomo-crafted frames with legendary models like the Pro line that were built for lightweight performance and quick handling. From its beginnings in the San Fernando Valley, Redline was synonymous with winning. Lighter. Cleaner. Built for racing first, not showing off. If someone rolled up with a Redline at the gate, you paid attention. You didn't need to say anything. You just watched. Because when that gate dropped, you knew they believed that bike could make the difference. Mongoose bikes had presence. Yeah, they weren't always the absolute lightest, but they were tough. Built with rugged frames that could take hits and keep rolling, Mongoose machines were more about momentum and durability than the last tenth of a second. They carried speed through rough sections and didn't get all twitchy when things got ugly. And yeah, mag wheels were a thing. You could hear them. You could see them. You never had to ask what kind of bike that was. You already knew. They weren't the race machines from catalogs, but on packed dirt with berms and pancake jumps, they earned respect. For us, SE racing, especially the PK Ripper, that was the bike. SE Bikes was born from the vision of Scott Breithaupt, one of BMX's founding fathers, who pushed innovation with designs that stood out in both form and function. Lighter aluminum frame, that loop tail, those lines. PKs were aggressive bikes for aggressive riders. If you showed up with one, it usually meant elbows were coming in the first turn. That bike wasn't as subtle. And neither were the kids riding them. It wasn't just a bike. It was a statement. CW racing bikes felt different. Hand-built. Serious. You didn't see a ton of them, but the kids who rode CWs? They were there to race, not mess around. Strong frames. Built to last. No gimmicks. Because CW was what you rolled on when you took racing seriously. No frills, just focused precision for riders chasing mains and trophies. Southern California didn't just follow BMX racing, it shaped it. The tracks, the bikes, the mindset. From those early informal dirt courses to the legitimized ABA and NBL circuits, SoCal racers helped define how BMX would grow. So it wasn't just a local thing. It became national and eventually global. Back then, this wasn't nostalgia. It was competition. If you raced BMX in the 80s, you remember the sounds. The gate dropping, chains rattling, parents behind the fence yelling way too loud. Next time, we'll talk about the tracks themselves and why SoCal racing was just faster. Remember when